The Janitors went home.
And that was the #1 hit song of the year, Alexander's Ragtime Band. It's a beautiful day here in 1911 Petaluma, and we have a very special guest with us in the studio. The vote on women's suffrage is coming up soon, and we are buried up to our knickers with posters and leaflets from the suffragists. The anti-suffragists are busy too, handing out pamphlets which feature quotes from our guest, Democratic State Senator from Ukiah, J.B. Sanford. Welcome to our show, Senator.
My honor to be here.
Are you the leader of the anti-senator?
Oh, no, Brett. I'm just another home-loving, patriotic man who cherishes, protects, and honors women. I want to defeat this political hysteria that is sweeping over the country. That is the greatest service any man can do.
Like the rest of the Bay Area, Petaluma is pretty evenly split. Who's going to win this battle of the sexes?
First, the great majority of women do not want to vote. This is not a fight between men and women, but a fight between women. The real mothers and home builders are opposed to this measure, while the other side is determined to enact prohibition and believe it will pass after women get the vote.
Is that why the liquor industry is bringing the celebrity speakers from the East Coast and also paying for the printing of leaflets with your editorials?
All of us are just fighting against the short-haired woman and the long-haired man who are trying to stir things up. As long as women keep her place, she will get more consideration and protection than man gets.
Uh-huh. Well, moving along, we're now joined by your main adversary in the debate over suffrage, Frances McG, noted Santa Rosa attorney and president of the Santa Rosa Political Equality Club.
Hello, Fanny.
Frances.
Oh.
Frances, why should an undecided male voter cast a ballot for women's suffrage?
One reason is because we are being taxed without representation. Women own at least a quarter of the taxable property in Sonoma County.
Senator, is that true?
Oh, it's a thread-worn argument. Property is taxed, not the individual.
People pay taxes. By your reasoning, because women can't vote, they shouldn't be allowed to own property either.
Well, shouldn't all Americans have a constitutional right to vote?
Man is still man and women is women. Nature has made their duties and functions different, and no constitutional amendment can make them the same. A few misguided but well-meaning people want to throw women into the dirty pool of politics along with man, not realizing that by so doing, they will not cleanse the pool, but will leave a great deal of dirt on fair women.
If politics is a dirty pool, then it was a great mistake to give the ballot to men in the first place, and should be taken away from them as soon as possible.
The great majority of women do not want to vote, and thus have the added responsibility of serving on juries. What husband would like to come home some evening and find the children dirty and hungry, no supper on the table, and wifey locked up in a jury room with 11 men?
Why do you always assume there will only be one woman on the jury?
Women's suffrage has had a demoralizing effect in Colorado and Utah. Divorces have increased 37.5%, and the number of young girls gone wrong has increased at an alarming rate. The court records show that 60% of the divorces granted were on the ground that the wife had failed to properly take care of the children and had been gadding the streets doing politics.
Nonsense. Suffrage doesn't cause divorces. Last night in Santa Rosa, we heard the former ambassador to New Zealand, women who have had suffrage there for 11 years. He said there are fewer divorces each year in the whole of New Zealand than in Sonoma County.
Senator, you seem to be making 2 points. Suffrage hurts families, and giving women the right to vote would harm the state.
No one is mistreating the women of the country. They have more rights now than men have. The men are able to run the government and take care of the women. Women are represented at the ballot box by fathers, brothers, husbands, and sons. Women's suffrage means simply increasing the number of uninformed and irresponsible voters.
Women are not all idiots. For a number of years, women, in constantly increasing numbers, have attended political meetings. In fact, I often hear men complain that the non-voters crowded out the voters, and the tired men had to stand if they wished to hear the speeches, while the women occupied their seats.
But the home-loving, modest women do not vote as a rule. Elections in the big cities of Colorado prove this. The immoral women are forced to vote, and their voices are controlled by the police force and the party in power.
I seem to remember there was quite a fuss about that a couple of years ago.
Oh, absolutely. The former governor said, only the dregs of womankind vote in Colorado. Mothers had to be practically clubbed to go vote.
Half the women in Colorado vote. That's more than the men. There are women's political clubs for both parties. They've gotten important reform legislation passed that had been stalled for years. I would be happy to debate this all day, but it's pointless if you're just going to repeat these lies, this made-up news.
Well, sorry you can't stay, but thank you for coming by, Mrs. Frances McG. Martin. Senator, just before our show, I was reading your biography. You've been in the state assembly and Senate now for 15 years.
That's right.
And you've owned the Ukiah Dispatch Democrat paper for most of that time. You must have quite a bit of influence in Mendocino County.
I'm proud to say they call me the Gray Eagle of Mendocino.
I was surprised to learn you were one of the first politicians to call for corporations to be taxed. And everyone now considers you far ahead of your time for taking on the lumber mills and timber companies up there. You got a law passed that required them to limit the workday to 10 hours, give workers a full hour off for lunch, and pay them at least once a month and in cash.
Something had to be done. The conditions were only a few degrees removed from slavery. I won a re-election for standing up for them, but the companies called me an anarchist.
And now you're kicking up a fuss on your anti-Japanese measure.
Yes, this is the third session of the Senate where I've introduced my alien land bill.
And that's aimed at blocking Japanese farmers from owning land, right?
Mainly, yes. The bill would prevent anyone Japanese from owning property under any circumstances.
Is that really such a serious problem?
The amount of land owned by the Japanese is alarming. They are crowding out the white people.
Crowding out? That seems a bit extreme. Are there many legislators who agree with you?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yet you can't get the bill passed.
The boys will come around.
Some of these pamphlets that the antis are handing out contain parts of an address you made in the Senate. Am I right?
Yes, in February 1905.
You're known as quite a renowned orator. Could you read a little bit of it for us, please?
I'd be happy to, Brett. Mr. President and gentlemen of the Senate, I bow in humble submission to the absolute supremacy of women so long as she is women. Men and women are constituted differently and have different spheres of usefulness. Woman has her sphere in life, and so has man, and they cannot be changed. Man can attend to all the affairs of a governmental nature, but in order that our country shall endure, we must look to the home side of life. The home is the place for women. God knows she has enough to do there in bringing up the little ones in the way they should go. In the states where women's suffrage has been tried, it has proven to be a failure, and the people wish they could undo the wrong they have done. Let us keep our homes pure and independent, and we all will be well with the Republic. Let us make them homes of refinement in which we shall teach our daughters that modesty, gentleness, and patience are the charms of women. My friends, we have drifted too far from the ideals of the fathers of the Republic. The pendulum has swung too far. We have too much new era and too much new woman. Why, if some of the old grandmothers could be called back to earth, they would be astounded beyond comprehension. Let good old grandma come back and take a walk down the street with us and see what meets her gaze. Suddenly, a something approaches her, and a ruffling of skirts causes her to take off her spectacles. It has on a man's shirt front, a collar and tie to match. It has on a hat that sticks out over half a mile with a multitude of birds and an ostrich on it. Grandma is told it was a suffragette.
What is a suffragette?
I will tell you by reading from a letter of a dear old mother in Oakland. A suffragette is a mannish woman who kisses lapdogs instead of babies and who wants to raise hell, but no children. A suffragette is a woman who believes in single blessedness and would decimate the race if she could. With her, the world is all wrong. She wants to regulate the birth rate of the nation and propagate her own species by a process of chemical analysis or Chickaluma incubation. Poor old grandma, of whom we were just speaking, sees how the pendulum has swung the wrong way and goes back to her grave and turns over with a sigh. But if she returns to the realm 50 years hence, she will see still greater wonders. Time has wrought great changes, and wonderful changes are yet to come. We are standing in the daybreak of the 20th century. All men will soon become bald-headed and learn to sing sweet baby songs as they rock the cradle and wash the dishes. The women will wear bloomers and run the government. And then the world will come to an end. And from out of the wreck of world and the dissolution of nature and the smoke and dust of the awful crash will emerge a suffragette. And sealing herself on the top rail of creation, she will shake the dust and ashes out of her feathers and look around over the ruin she has wrought and say, "Well, haven't I raised hell? Oh, you kid, I'll get you yet, you suffragette."
Well, that was really quite something. It really was. Will you be staying around the Bay Area to campaign against suffrage?
No, I'm going right back to Sacramento. The Los Angeles longhairs are trying to legislate sobriety and morality into the people. The Sunday law, prohibition, local option, anti-gambling, anti-prize fight bills are all proposed laws. The people will have to be good now or go to jail. The pendulum is swinging too far one way.
Well, it sounds like you have your work cut out for you.
I sure do.
Well, thanks for being here, Senator J.B. Sanford. And now it's time for our popular weekly feature, Future News, with our time-traveling reporter, Mabel Chumley. What year did you visit this time, Mabel?
1928, Brett.
So what's going to happen in Petaluma 17 years from now? And why don't you ever bring us back something useful, like stock market tips?
You know I can't do that.
Doesn't hurt to ask.
Well, I see by the paper there will be no Egg Day celebration this year.
Too bad. I really enjoy those.
The Elk Lodge puts on a big show at the California Theater. There's a very heavy rainstorm in late March. Oh, here's an item about your last guest.
The senator? Maybe he'd like to hear that. Charlie, is the senator still in the building? No?
Probably just as well. It's about his death.
Oh.
He fell, or jumped, from a hotel window in San Francisco.
My goodness.
5 stories.
Could he have been pushed? Were there any witnesses?
He was alone. His wife was having breakfast in the hotel restaurant. It says relatives and friends could give no reason for him to commit suicide. Finger marks on the windowsill show that he tried to save himself.
Well, that's too bad. He was a man with many friends.
And many enemies too, Brett.